They know it's happening. And actually, they go as far to say, we know who's doing it. They stop people in spot checks during the day. They had caught people last year as well during a police operation, which we can perhaps talk about. They know who they are, but they just are unable to catch them in the act.
That was Express reporter Julian Morell, and this is the Bailiwick Pod with me, James Filial. Well, it seems it's not just been the hot weather which has been keeping people awake this week. People reporting speeding cars zooming past their windows in the wee small hours have been a regular feature on social channels, and the perennial problem of late-night speed races has even hit the States Chamber, with promises of unattended speed cameras being introduced by the end of this year. It's obviously not a new problem, but one which at best irritates people trying to get to sleep, and at worst, has resulted in serious accidents. Express looked at the issue this week, and our reporter Julian Morell joins me now. Julian, I know it's the Honorary Police who are typically at the sharp end of policing these issues. What have they been able to say on it this week?
We spoke to the Honoraries this week because we had been contacted by a number of people saying that they had heard more boy racers screaming past their house late at night over the weekend, and it was really just to find out whether there had been elevated levels. We've known about this problem for a couple of years, really since lockdown, which seemed to have spurred an increase in people taking part in organised races late at night. And the answer from us to us this weekend was that there had been a slight increase. There had been more people, possibly due to the hot weather, but it also coincided with some news in the States this week that the attempts to bring in a law to introduce mobile speed cameras which may counter this activity would happen by the end of the year. So there was some new news to look at as well.
So what was the specific feedback then from the Honorary Police? Because obviously it's the Honoraries who are kind of at the sharp end of this, in the sense that they'll be the ones that people tend to phone overnight and say, I can hear this stuff going on. So what have they said about how they're trying to manage it?
Really, it's difficult for them. They know it's happening, and actually they go as far to say, we know who's doing it. They stop people in spot checks during the day. They had caught people last year as well during a police operation, which we can perhaps talk about. They know who they are, but they just are unable to catch them in the act, and there's a number of reasons for this. Primarily, the organisers, or the way that these drives are organised, are actually quite sophisticated. Social media is the forum by which they communicate. They often have spotters. They have people checking to see the routes before the cars actually go through at speed. One centennier told me that they missed every single CCTV camera in his parish in St. Juan. They'd also missed all the speed indicators. So you'll recognise driving through the parish, you often see a digital sign that will give you your speed or tell you to slow down. Well, those can actually record the speed without actually recording the identification of the car. And that can be logged, so they know where the cars are going through, but they're missing them all. So it's quite clever. And of course, the officers can't be everywhere. They're, by virtue of being in the honoraries, they're volunteers. So they would have to really commit to be out in the small hours to catch these speeding cars. But also they're limited in the technology that they can use. They really have only got handheld laser guns, speed guns, which don't work particularly well at night, but also they don't record the car. So really, if they do catch someone, it is a case of the person's word against the officers. Obviously, the officers have an elevated sense of in court their voices are heard, but there isn't that hard admissible evidence which they say a speed camera would provide.
So you say they know pretty much who the drivers are. Do they also know basically where the hotspots are as well?
Well, the hotspots are pretty much everywhere. So yes, they've got an idea, and another centennier, the chef de police de St. Peter, did tell me that that they knew where the hotspots were and they would be targeting those. Of course, he didn't tell me where they were. Just looking at the Facebook comments from individuals who have commented on our story today, it's almost it's a Perry's guide of Jersey locations, from the 5 Mile Road to Long Beach in Grouville, from St Martin's around St Catherine's and Archie Rondell, all the way out to the sticks of St Juan and Latac. So really, there's very few places or main roads of the island, and lanes as well, that aren't on the routes.
So if unattended speed cameras are the answer, where are we up to on those? I remember the states agreed that was something they were going to bring through. I think Chris Taylor brought that proposition. So where's that up to now? Well,
as you rightly say, last September there was a states debate which was brought by the former Constable of St John, which called on the states to support his proposal that unattended mobile speed cameras should be allowed. He also asked for higher fines for drivers who were 30 miles an hour or more over the speed limit. Mobile unattended cameras it's not quite as straightforward as simply bringing them in. Not all honorary officers are particularly confident in their ability to effectively catch people. And as evidence, it was the infrastructure minister admitted in the States this week that actually no single police force in the entire United Kingdom use unattended mobile speed cameras. And what are the reasons? Well, I think being left alone, I think they are open to vandalism and abuse. One honorary officer said to me today, well, if the spotters are doing their job, they could easily just twist the camera around so it's pointing in the wrong direction, or potentially some spray could be put over the lens to stop it recording. It's the fact that they're left, and he would much prefer a camera which is mounted in a police car so they could hide behind a lane or in a quiet spot and record. It's attended. So, and also there's question marks over the cost of them. I think they're quite pricey bits of kit, 18,000 each, which for a parish that's quite a large chunk of money for constables used to running a tight ship financially. And secondly, they need to be calibrated, and I think they need quite a lot of maintenance as well, which prompted the Transport Minister, Deputy Lewis, to say in the States this week, it is a very complex matter. This isn't just a straightforward matter. And I think members knew when they passed almost in principle the former Constable Taylor's proposition. They knew that a lot of work would have to be done to turn that principle into law.
It's clearly not a new thing, though. Obviously, speeding's been around since the motor car's been around. So how does it fit into the island's kind of wider crackdown on speeding?
Well, the introduction of mobile cameras, which the states agreed last September, and will be, we're told this week, part of a law that shall be presented to the states and debated before the end of this year. It's part of a wider review. I think there's a general acceptance among both the police, honorary police, transport policy makers widely that the laws, the speeding laws, do need to be updated. We haven't seen the detail yet, but the introduction of cameras will be one element of a wider review of speeding legislation and an updated speeding legislation, because at the moment there's a general acceptance that it's been rather piecemeal and it needs to be coordinated. And it's also part of an even wider review into Jersey's traffic laws, which again, there's a concession that with our busy roads and the multiple cars on the roads, that the legislation, which is decades old, is not potentially fit for purpose. Now, that review in its entirety could take as long as 5 years. There were questions raised that the speed element, if it's part of that, then we can't afford to wait 5 years to clamp down on this activity and other speeding. And this is why the Transport Minister pledged that it would be taken as a separate piece of work before the end of this year.
So what hope is there on the horizon? I mean, to some people, it's probably sounds like an issue which is even quite funny, I mean, who cares? Kids speeding, it's not a big thing. But to many people, it is a really big thing. If you're woken up every night, then that's obviously a real pain. And we get lots of feedback like that from people, particularly on social media, but also commenting on the website. So what hope is there for them, if you look at it from their point of view for a second, that something is actually going to change?
From the point of view of the residents or the drivers?
From the residents?
I think from the residents will hope that it's a step in the right direction. Whether it stops the drivers will be, we'll have to wait and see. From a number of people also feedback that, speeding, there are routes to speed in Jersey, primarily through the Jersey Motorcycle and Light Car Club and other avenues. The sprints along the front, although they haven't been there for a while, the sprints along the front allow people to, within a controlled environment, reach huge speeds along the road at from Le Poulant to Le Bray. And of course, there's the rally. There are other speed events, Bully Bay. So encouraging people really to take part in motorsport if speed is their kick.
That was Express reporter Julian Morell, and this is the Bailiwick Podcast. You can read more on all of the issues we cover in the pod at bailiwickexpress.com. If you enjoyed it, please do like and share, it really does help. And the music you can hear at the beginning and at the end is I Shift My Weight by Lupo. That's it from the pod this week. Thanks for listening.